I'm excited about today's topic, home appraisals, because we don't talk about those enough. It's not something the buyers really think about, or the sellers for that matter, when they're buying a house, right?
One of the main things that you have to worry about.
It's important, and it's part of the mortgage process, the mortgage financing.
It confirms the value of the property. So with us today, we have Lorenzo and Adam from Sharp Appraisal, and together they have a lot of knowledge to share with us and many years of experience. So they know this appraisal world inside and out. So we were very lucky to have you guys today.
Welcome.
And hopefully you'll share a little bit of that knowledge with us today.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you very much for having us. We love communicating and being out there with everybody and passing on whatever we know.
That's wonderful.
Good. Yeah. Thanks for that nice introduction. We're in terms of experience. Myself, I've been in the real estate appraisal business for 20 years. So I've seen ups and downs and constant, but I've never seen anything like this in my entire life. So hopefully we'll be able to share some insight on what's going on.
That's great. We would love some insight because we hear from all different industries, right? What their perception is of what's happening and what's going to happen in the coming months.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I always tell my clients how appraisal is important. That's one of the most important things that confirms the value of the property to the lender. How would appraisal affect what is a borrower looking for and what is the lender need to look for? How does this process work?
So everybody asks me, Lorenzo, what do you do in the appraisal? Well,
yeah.
Now there's two different ways we do appraisals now. Now, ever since COVID, specifically middle of March, we do what we call a modified appraisal. And a modified appraisal is we actually physically go to the house or to the condominium, to whatever the property is, and we take pictures of the exterior, go around to the backyard, and we actually conduct a Zoom telephone conversation with the homeowner. We don't want to get anybody infected and vice versa. We don't want to get infected in case someone's a carrier and we don't know that. And that's very important. That's the biggest problem on the market today is COVID. So what we'll do is we'll take any data we can. We'll go on an old MLS listing.
Yes.
We may engage, or we do engage the applicant to give us a breakdown of the property, provide us with pictures if we can. And we actually have them fill out a form which gives them an opportunity to show off their house. Now with the market opening, where COVID is, we're trying to get past this stage. We're physically going out to inspect the properties, and if we're comfortable with the applicant and ourselves, we'll go into the property and we'll do it like we did back before COVID.
Before COVID, right? But for vacant properties, I think you were still going physically into the property if it was a vacant property, correct?
Correct. And sometimes what we're doing as well is that we are asking the applicant to leave. While we're in the house, do you mind going outside and turn on all the lights and open all the doors? So, but we come prepared. We have our masks and our gloves, and we try to adapt to what the applicant to whoever's doing the appraisal. Whoever the homeowner is. Maybe they don't want us in the house because they have elderly people in there.
It's true. And Yuli and I have had that same situation whereby if we have to go list, if I have to go list a property, for instance, and they're not comfortable with it, we've done FaceTime calls, we've done Zoom calls where they don't know how to do a Zoom call, they'll do FaceTime or WhatsApp. It's not the ideal way to see a house, but it works for the circumstances. Yeah. And the same with Yulia with her with meeting with buyers, right?
Definitely, yeah. So if my borrower comfortable, if my client comfortable with the technology, why not use it, right?
Absolutely.
And that's what it's all about. It's adapting, to the changes. And this might be this might be the new normal everybody is talking about. So we have to adapt and make changes as time goes on.
Pre-COVID, though, would there be a determination whether you needed to go into the property? Was some drive-by and some more where you had to physically go into the property? Did you have to make that determination, or were they all the same?
That's a very good question. there's typically, I'm going to say, three of the most popular appraisals are what we call a desktop appraisal, a drive-by appraisal, and a full appraisal. Those are probably the three most important ones. Now, a desktop appraisal is where you ask me to do the appraisal, but I'm not physically going to the house. I'm not inspecting it. I'm doing with the data that I have.
Right.
Those banks, lending institutions may ask for a desktop if the loan to value ratio is very low and they just want to make sure that some sort of value is there.
Okay.
So we don't do very many of the desktop or the drive-bys. The drive-by appraisal is I physically go to the house, I sit in my car, I get out and I take a picture of the front of the house and the streetscape, and then I try to get as much information as I can about that house on MLS or on talking to the applicant. The third one, which is the most popular and probably the one that a lot of lenders expect, including private lenders, is a full appraisal, where we actually go into the house, we take measurements from the exterior, we take pictures. Typically, we'll take 2 or 3 pictures of each room and put it in the report. We're looking at upgraded features. We're looking at positive and negative aspects of the home. And then we formulate our value based on that type of real estate.
So how long does the process take? Like from the time that you're actually requested to do an appraisal to actually conducting it and then doing up the report?
Well, the time inside the house typically takes about, let's say, 20 to 30 minutes.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And we're trained, our staff is trained, our appraisers are all trained to look for certain things. So it may not seem like a lot of time. Well, I was only in my house for 20 minutes or whatever it is. But as we're walking around and taking pictures, we're taking notes and we're visualizing, and we take a lot of pictures so that when we get back to the office, we have everything available to us. So
you prepare. You just prepare just in case. You prepare more pictures so you can get back to it, and you don't have to put them all in, but you just use them for your reference as well.
So we may take more pictures than needed. However, it's better that we have that, at our fingertips as opposed to having to get back on the phone. And bulk of the work comes from our appraisers, and this is behind the scenes that nobody ever talks about or nobody ever sees, is the research and the analysis that goes into determining the value. So the best way to picture it is, let's say, for example, you're looking for a house and it's in a neighborhood of Valor. Like every township has different neighborhoods. So let's say, for example, in Valor Village, which is a part of Vaughan, we may do a research and we may find 100 souls. Now that's a lot of property to look at. And then from that, we'll take those 100 properties and then we will narrow it down to 75 and then 50 and then 25. And then we'll pick our top 10 and then we'll do our research that way.
So the most important question that my clients ask me, what can I do to make my appraiser value better? What can I do?
Oh, that's always a question we're always asked. What we recommend is that now we're talking as the appraisal process happening. Make sure the house is organized. Make sure it's clean. Make sure we have access to the full rooms, all the rooms. And what's very good to do is to have your applicant, even if they want to write on a piece of paper, what have they done in the property over the last 3 to 5 years? What's special about your home?
It's funny because you look at pretty much exactly what we look at when we're going to list it. It sounds almost identical to all the information we ask.
Exactly. And you're doing that thorough analysis yourself as well. Mm-hmm. You're going through and you're comparing to other homes that you've seen.
Exactly.
A list of upgrades is always important to have. I get asked this question quite often, and all my appraisers do. We say, Lorenzo, I'm thinking about upgrading my home, or I'm thinking of making some improvements. Where do you recommend I spend my money? So or I'm going to list a house for sale. What should I do? Number one is probably paint the house. If you're in a position where you can paint the house, paint it. That gives it a new, fresh look.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I'm
It's
sure
an economical thing to do, but it really does make a difference.
if you've got more time period, and let's say you want to renovate your house, I would say dollar for dollar you get in your kitchen and your bathrooms.
Definitely.
Another question I have: did appraisers change the process over the years? For example, in terms of this report that you have, producing that report.
The appraisal process, let's say, have changed over the last 15, 20 years, and every year we get more and more, more and more specifications that we put in our appraisal. So right now, what lenders are looking at are pictures, and they're looking at written statements that we put, like we put improvements, what has been done over the house, how does it compare to other homes. Curb appeal is very important as well, because and that as a real estate agent,
absolutely,
people drive into the driveway and you're showing the house and they go, "Oh my God, I love it," right? So,
or the opposite.
That's true.
It's interesting that you say that, because sometimes the curb appeal, so people sometimes worry so much about the inside, they forget about the outside, and that first impact is what you see outside. But then they walk in, thankfully, because sometimes they don't even want to walk in if that first impact isn't good, and they've done great work to the house, but they just forgot about outside. Curb appeal is important. That's another place they should spend their money. I mean, so you can do something economical, but make it look clean, neat, and inviting.
Very good point. You're absolutely right. Like, I wouldn't suggest spending, thousands and thousands of dollars on your front lawn. Right. However, it doesn't take very much to mow the lawn and add some flowers.
Exactly. And you've just already improved, like, it makes it inviting, and someone says, okay, I want to go into that house.
That's exactly.
Now, in terms of appraisals, though, you're looking at, let's say the driveway needs a lot of work, or the brickwork maybe looks like it has, maybe some decaying, or do you look a lot at that as well?
Absolutely. We look at the exterior, the finish, driveways, landscaping, side yards, backyards, decks, fencing. And the reason we look at that is because when we're comparing properties, we try to put them all in the same category. Sure. So for example, if we're doing two houses and they're side by side, they're neighbors, and they're exactly the same home, built at the same time, and one has gravel driveway with no fence on one side, and the exterior hasn't been painted for decades, and then the house beside it has concrete driveway, beautiful trees, brand new windows. That's telling me that house is more well cared for, and it should be worth more than the house next door.
Maybe my clients say, okay, I get appraisal done maybe once a year, because some of them are with lenders with a B side, alternative side of the lenders. So they do refinancing with someone else next year, or they add more mortgage to their mortgage. So and they ask, okay, last year value of my house was more, why this year is less?
I'm glad you brought that up. Real estate is always, the value today can be different than next week, and we saw that during COVID. We saw January, February, and March. January, February, the market started taking off, and the prices went up. And then in a matter of a week, 2 weeks, the prices dropped. Like almost 5 to 10%, and that's almost overnight. Now we're back on that same trend where the prices are going up. So you can see how within a month and a half, the prices have fluctuated so much. So when we go back, let's say using your example, last year might have been the peak of the market. February 2017. Everybody remembers that time period where you list the house for $1 million and someone would be knocking on your door and saying, "Here's $1.4 million," and that was the norm back then. And then you were unfortunate, you bought at that peak of the market and you had your appraisal done, and then the market crashed. At that time it went down, and then a year later you're trying to get a mortgage and they're saying, well, why is my house only worth 1.1 million when I paid 1.4 million?
Right.
You know, we've all heard of stories like that.
Oh, yeah.
Or in the newspapers, I'm sure, you know, as a real estate agent, as a mortgage broker, you've run around that. That's the situation where we have to look at real estate within a, you know, small time period. You know, usually lenders like to determine a value with sales within the last 90 days.
Right.
Okay.
That's right. That's why it's good to have that appraisal done when you're close to closing. Now, if you want to do it a month or so ahead of time, that way it relieves pressure off of anyone. That way, if you're coming across any surprises, you deal with it, you know, more. You have more time to do with it.
Sure. For sure. And that brings me to another question. Usually clients ask, okay, who pays for appraisal usually, and who does?
Really, it's the applicant who pays for it. The individual who's ordering the appraisal for whatever reason. There wasn't, but now the way the most agencies, the industry works is that, you know, you'll have we'll do the appraisal for the bank or for the mortgage broker. However, it's the applicant who pays for it. And unfortunately, they don't get a copy of the report, even though they're paying for it. But, you know, because it's a third party information going for lending purposes. There's some information in the appraisal report where it's privacy issues, because you're the client. Who's my client? You know,
right.
The homeowner is not my client. The buyer is not my client. It's the lender who is my client.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So yeah, and what I noticed, some of the lenders will reimburse the borrower for sure for the appraisal process.
Some may, some lenders may, or some brokers may, but yeah, it all depends on the situation, I guess. Banks, I think they have their own internal appraisal companies that do it, and you know, who are on staff and get paid on a salary basis, and they may do it. That's included.
What I wanted to ask was, so Sharp Appraisal, you and Adam,
Yeah.
you're both with Sharp Appraisal?
Yeah. Adam, you can talk a little bit about our company and.
Sure. Yeah. So,
talk a little bit about your company so people know who Sharp Appraisals are.
Yeah, sure. So the company, we've been up and running for about 3 years. Lorenzo, as he mentioned, he's been in the appraisal business for 20 plus years. And obviously he's the principal owner. I think there's a couple of things that we try to separate ourselves as an appraisal company. You know, and Yulia, you can, from the broker's perspective, you know, and the feedback that I've received is nothing frustrates them more when the appraisal is supposed to come Tuesday morning, for example, and instead it comes Friday. There's zero communication along the way. You know, it's really frustrating, you know, from the broker's perspective, as well as the lenders, right? Brokers are kind of the middleman in between that, between that whole process. What we do at Sharp, and I'm not sure what other companies are doing, but we really try to strive for the 24 to 48 hour turnaround time on our appraisal orders. And that's after the inspection time. Another thing that we really try to do, and I'm not sure what other companies are doing, as I mentioned, but you know, this isn't one of those situations where we're reaching out to our applicant 3 or 4 days later, and then it's the 48-hour timeline that we're trying to reach. If we get an appraisal order that same day, we're reaching out to the applicant. In some cases, our appraisers are on the road. Even in those situations, myself or our office administrator, Sydney, we're going to reach out to the applicant and just let them know, listen, you're going to have a phone call coming. Gary's been assigned to your case, or Joseph, you know, one of our appraisers. You can expect a call either today or by tomorrow morning. And at that point, it's just trying to figure out and collaborate a time that works more best for the applicant. So, you know, in all those situations, we're going to try our best to, you know, really reach out and make the appraisal process as seamless as we can. And, you know, the last thing I'll say is, you know, just about our services. We're trying to put ourselves in the head of the applicant, right? And in some situations, the applicant will pay for the appraisal, and because of CUSAP guidelines, they're not even able to see the report. So we want to do our best to be as professional, as courteous, and walk them through the appraisal process as easily as we can, to make sure that they feel comfortable. And again, you know, everything that we can control, our professionalism, our courtesy, our punctuality, those are things that we're going to try our best to always, you know, be on top of.
That's
so
fantastic. So
why do people need an appraisal?
Right. That's what it brings me to.
Yeah, there's many different reasons why. I mean, you'll have most of our appraisals are done for the banks or for private lenders. But you may need an appraisal because, let's say, for example, one of your clients has inherited a property. And from that point, they want to put it on for sale, or they need it for tax purposes, or they need to establish a value. Bankruptcy. Sometimes we're getting calls from people who are going bankrupt, and they need to establish a value for their accounting. Divorce. People who are going through a divorce or separation, they need to calculate the value of them. What we're getting a lot, Laurie, is even like realtors are calling us to say, hey, listen, our clients' pricing expectations, they want to put their home for sale. They want an idea how much it's going to be selling on the market, and then we'll go in there and we'll give an estimation of what we think it's worth.
Okay, no, that's fantastic. Because I'd like people to know this. Why Yuli and I do this is because we have overall knowledge over a large scope of things. I'm a real estate agent. Yulia does the mortgage side of it. You do the appraisal side of it. It's nice to speak to someone who is specialized, because education is power. And that's why we're doing these segments every week.
Absolutely, yeah.
I can give some information on appraisals, but what you bring to the table is so much more. And I think that nobody talks about appraisals enough. And I think it's an important subject. And that people don't understand. You go for a mortgage and there's the covenant yourself with your documentation, but then the appraisal is what ties it all into the lender.
That's true, and that's a great point you brought up, Laurie, because a lot of people don't understand that the banks will lend on, correct me if I'm wrong, the lower of the purchase price or the appraised price. Appraisal. Yeah, when some people may overpay for a property and they say, oh, don't worry about it, it's going to be qualified, but then the appraisal comes in lower, the banks are going to take that lower number.
Exactly. That's where it's important. Exactly. And I think we're seeing multiple offers. Again, you might be seeing that too from your end. I think it's also because the market right now is a little volatile just because of layoffs and uncertainty, employment, and but houses are still selling because there's not a lot of inventory, and that's what's keeping the prices up.
Bang on. You hit it right on the nail. The inventory is low. And I don't know how you're seeing out there, but what we're seeing is competitive bid scenarios where, I can't remember the stats I calculated the other day. I think 60% of the sales in the Toronto area sold at list price or above.
Or above.
Or above.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So your jobs as a mortgage broker and a realtor are getting, more difficult, where you have to, caution your buyer, hey. And as a mortgage broker, it's like, hey, you better make sure you have a backup plan if you're going to get in that competitive bid.
And that's exactly why we wanted to speak with you about it, because that appraised value, if it doesn't come in where your purchase price is, they're going to have to come up with cash to make up the shortfall.
Exactly.
And that's the important thing. So you tie in together the price, the lender's expectation, and you tie that all in. But Yulia, we lost her. She says, she apologizes, but she thanks you so much for taking the time out, because we know you're busy with between meetings, and so nice of you guys to join us so that it'll direct them to your website.
Absolutely, that'd be great.
And if they have any questions, they can reach out to you directly, and you can take it from there.
Anytime.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us, and thank you for doing the shows.